Right, hey guys, how we doing? Back in another video from Totally Not Mark, and today we are checking out ranking every fight in Dragon Ball. So like you guys know, I'm catching up with Totally Not Mark stuff, so we did the DB Daima review, which was interesting. Some points I didn't agree with, some points I did, some points just shocked me. And it was a nice refresh, nice to see bits of the dub. Never watched any of the dub before. But now we're checking out ranking every Dragon Ball fight. Then we're going to check out ranking every Dragon Ball Z fight. Then we're going to check out ranking every Dragon Ball Super fight. Then we're going to do the top 20 fights in Dragon Ball ever. And then we're going to do the Dan to Dan review. Boom! Let's get into it.
They said it couldn't be done.
Did they? Who were they? Who said this?
They said that no one would ever be dumb enough to siphon through every single fight in this series to create the ultimate Dragon Ball fight tier list.
But I believe in you, Mark. I believe you're the one dumb enough to do it.
Well, whoever said that never met me. So, what are the
Hey.
rules? Number one, I am only counting the canon fights, and this means no Dragon Ball GT or
Ooh, interesting shout there. GT not canon up.
non-canon films. Number two, we need to be able to see the fight for it to count, which means no Krillin versus Tambourine, despite that fight contributing to the story significantly and technically happening. And finally, number three,
There are no rules.
this series will be divided into 3 separate videos, culminating with a 4th and final top 20 to determine which Dragon Ball fights are the very best of them all.
Oh, but you didn't do Daima, you tease.
Despite Dragon Ball starting out as an adventure comedy series, the original search for the Dragon Balls had quite a few fights to its name. Too bad most of them aren't actually going to rank well at all. Goku versus a big fish, a literal pterodactyl, a bear thief, Boss Rabbit's henchman, and any number of other permutations just don't do enough to warrant being on this list in any serious capacity.
Is
They
fair
exist to say,
enough.
hey, look at this character, aren't they something? And you know what? Yeah, that's fine, but it's not going to wow me in any way. I'm pretty sure most of you didn't even remember Goku fought that bear thief anyway, so
I mean, I did. I only watched Dragon Ball last year, so yeah.
yeah, bottom tier. Alright, now time for the heavy hitters. I'm talking Goku versus Oolong.
Hell yeah. There's
Alright,
transformations
it's
in
funny,
there.
it's better than the other 2-second-long fights I described earlier, and it serves as a mechanism that introduces Oolong to the main cast. Plus, the fight sets the stage for the wacky fights Dragon Ball will eventually become known for, like Boss Rabbit versus Goku, which, you know, definitely has a better punchline, but that said, neither of these
Stick 'em
fights
on the
are
moon.
anything too special. D tier. Unsurprisingly, the very best fights in this arc involve Yamcha in some capacity.
They do. When Goku fights Yamcha, it's really cool and interesting, and then it's always just ruined by like
Whether it
Bulma
be his
turning up.
first or second confrontation with Goku, or his battle against Goku's Uzaru
Oh,
form.
yeah.
In effect, the only fights with substantial drama to them in this arc come about thanks to his involvement. And while his fights with Goku are about on the same level as Oolong and Boss Rabbit in terms of entertainment and narrative significance, the climax is another story. Though, through our first glimpse of the Uzaru, we learn the true fate of Goku's late grandpa.
Yeah, that was sad.
It is surprisingly tragic, adds complexity to Goku's character, and adds the perfect amount of drama to the conclusion of this battle. And with that, we have our first C tier
C-tier.
rank.
Okay.
Thankfully, the quality skyrockets from this point.
There we go. Yo, let's go.
Something you'll realize from this moment onwards is that Dragon Ball's shift into Battle Shonen changes a few things. What were once a few chance encounters relegated to bottom tier will henceforth increase in number and scope and frequency. Case in point, there are a few encounters during Goku and Krillin's training arc. The saber-toothed cat, Lunch's pursuers, and our first glimpse of Goku versus
With
Krillin.
Krillin, yeah.
None of these are particularly impressive and offer little to consider. And that's not even to mention the preliminary matchups of the 21st Tenkaichi Budokai proper. None of these matches are exciting or interesting. They exist purely to demonstrate exactly how strong and talented Goku and Krillin are relative to the competition around them. Which, you know, fits the story perfectly, they just aren't going to be placed very well on this list. So yeah, there's nothing wrong with any of these really, there's just not a lot to them.
Yeah, there's not a lot of substance. It is just more for the narrative than it is for the actual visuals. and the enjoyment and yeah, all that jazz.
Bottom
Jazz.
tier. Thankfully,
Shizzle.
there's some gold in these there hills too. Right off the
Stage
bat,
one.
we've got 4 D tier entries with Krillin versus Bacterian,
Mm.
Yamcha versus Jackie Chun, Lanfan versus Namu, and Goku versus Girin. While none of these fights are super impressive, it's clear that the baseline standard has jumped up considerably. Good fights don't just serve as a means of facilitating a climax, they play a central role in communicating the story of the arc. While the fights with Bacterian, Lanfan, and Girin still lean on the old school Toriyama humor more than later installments will, it's
Yeah.
clear these bouts also serve
Definitely does step up, doesn't it?
to communicate character, whether that be Krillin's emotional growth since his training days or most impressively Namu's character introduction. Seriously, by the time that fight concluded, I felt as though I could actually
Watcha.
cheer for him, which proves vital for his later matchup. Moreover, these initial outings serve as our introduction to Jackie Chun as well as the overarching question of this tournament: can Roshi save his students' future by defeating them in this competition? The theme of fostering the next generation plays a heavy hand in this arc. Through a stroke of genius, Akira Toriyama shifts our perspective as a reader from Goku onto Master Roshi as he lifts himself out of retirement and steps up to the plate one last time. Through fights like Krillin versus Jackie Chun and Goku versus Namu, we gain insight into how formidable Goku is and the motivations behind Roshi's ambition. Knowing full well that neither of these two students would encounter a worthy challenge at this World Martial Arts Tournament, Roshi enlists himself as the most important lesson either fighter stands to learn is that no matter how strong you think you are, there could always be someone
tougher,
stronger
yeah.
around the corner.
And that's hilarious when they do the explanation of like what happened. People are like, wait a minute, it's just so fast, and then they recreate it all. Oh my
To
god.
never be complacent. Both of these semi-final matchups are easy contenders for C tier, but this final matchup between Goku and Jackie Chun is
Mate.
genuinely something special. Possibly the single most underrated Dragon Ball fight in existence, Goku versus Jackie Chun is a turning point in Akira Toriyama's journey as a writer. Brimming with all of the comedic flourishes one had come to expect from him up until this point, it's through Roshi's internal dialogue, expressions, strain, and sense of duty when things go awry that grants this fight a unique air. The choreography is spectacular and innovative. The themes of mentorship and untapped potential bathe the tournament floor. It's funny, but it's importantly serious when it needs to be. For Roshi, Goku isn't just another student, he's exactly what he's been waiting for. Someone worthy
pass
of
the
taking
torch
over
to,
as the
yeah.
Earth's defender when his time is up. And on this day, the day of the 21st Tenkaichi Budokai, Roshi knows the best thing for Goku is to lose. What an incredible fight, and our first bona
Ooh, we
fide
got an S. Love it because it is. It's class. It is great. Like to see Goku not win in that is like what? And then yeah, there's reasons.
S tier entry. The Red Ribbon Army arc has some truly great fights, but it was always one of the arcs I enjoyed the
Mr.
least.
Blue.
And I think I've discovered why through making this very video. The majority of fights in this arc are either super quick, low stakes, or some combination of the two. Seriously, I'm talking about at least 15 of the most forgettable fights in this series take place in this arc. So yeah, courtesy of the Red Ribbon Army arc, here's a lash of bottom tier entries to consider. However, if you wade through the grunts of the Red Ribbon Army, you do eventually come across some fights worthy of higher positionings. Goku's fight against Colonel
Of
Silver,
course.
General Blue, and
Blue.
his climb up Muscle Tower saw Toriyama get both creative and comedic in equal measure. However, while there will always be fans of this intensely comedic approach, there are moments where this style of writing begins to feel, I don't know, antiquated compared to the more balanced approach to comedy and drama that will come up later, which, unfortunately stopped me from giving these any higher than D tier. Which brings us to the first potentially controversial ranking on this list, General Blue versus Tao Pai Pai. I'm going to give this a C tier.
It is great.
Despite it being a blink and you miss it fight. However, there is a reason for that. It marries Toriyama's classic comedic writing sensibilities with a more modern, serious, and dark undertone. The sequence effectively serves to solidify Tao as a credible threat to Goku worthy of our attention, all the while his tongue attack and means of transportation in and of
Mate, it's
itself
so
are
sexual.
very
Whoa,
tasteful
boy.
examples
Just
of
kills with his
Toriyama's
tongue.
humor
It's like,
finding its
whoa.
way into the mix in a modern setting, ultimately creating the perfect build-up to the best fight of this arc. Goku versus Tao Pai Pai. While this is technically two distinct fights, both outings offer something unique and fun. The first is Goku's first real decisive and monstrous defeat at the hands of a villain. It is intense, it's scary, and he comes this close to being
dying,
killed.
yeah.
I like this because the fight sets in motion Goku's journey to Korin Tower and his eventual training there, which is way better than the second time he goes there, by the way. It's again
a bit
bathed in
lazy the
philosophy
second
that
time.
Goku can once again learn from, and as that second fight rolls around, man, is it ever satisfying to see Tao finally get what he deserves after everything he did to Upa. Easy
Boom.
A tier, I think, which is weird because that's not the climax of the arc. Goku versus the Red Ribbon Army base and General Black is.
Oh god, yeah.
It's super action-packed and cathartic getting to see Goku effectively dismantle this organization with his bare hands, but outside of a bit of friendly fire by General Black, there's not a lot to this. It's significant in the story, sure, but
Yeah, when it comes further down to see, it's quite interesting, isn't it? How they use this as a whole side story for like, well, backstory for like a whole bloody arc in Dragon Ball Z later down the line. It's like, yo,
can be pushed. I couldn't help but feel like this was a formality more than a satisfying payoff. C tier overall could have been better. Baba's tournament is weird. Not because it's a bad chunk of story, but because it's difficult to know where to categorize it. With the Red Ribbon Army effectively erased from the Earth thanks to Goku, placing this as part of the Red Ribbon Army arc seems wrong. However, the emotional through line of the story with Upa is still very much a holdover from the Red Ribbon Army arc proper, so it's sort of a weird in-between case, which I guess is fitting given it's Baba we're talking about here. It's kind of her whole bag.
Ooh,
While I
the
think back on
in-between
this section of
worlds,
the story
ah!
fondly, I can't say the fights are all that memorable outside of one or two outliers. Krillin versus Dracula, Upa and Puar versus Dracula, Yamcha versus Mummy, Goku versus Mummy, and Goku versus Devilman are all solid E-tier entries. for me. I
Damn.
remembered
They are boring.
virtually nothing about them, and upon revisiting, I found myself waiting for the more creative and emotional fights to come. Not great. Yamcha versus the Invisible Man stands out as funny and a meta solution to a substantial problem. It also gets bonus points for it not involving Goku. And while I do think that the gag itself is weird and exceptionally creepy,
That's funny.
I do think the
I was like, where's the name? But he's invisible. Oh yeah, Roshi's
solution Yamcha jumps to is creative and totally outside of most readers' purview, probably because most of us are well adjusted. Solid D tier. And heck, while we're at it, we can throw Goku versus the Pilaf gang after Baba's tournament in there too. D tier. But by far, the best fight of this tournament and one of my favorite moments in Goku's entire story has to be his fight with the unknown masked fighter, his grandpa, Gohan. Upon revisiting this fight for the video, I was surprised not just how well the emotional moment at the end was handled, but additionally by how complete a fight it actually ended up feeling. It's got a decent length to it, solid story structure, and has plenty of variety in terms of moves and character motivations. Within this fight, Goku demonstrates to his grandpa just how far he's come, all the while Gohan manages to teach Goku one final lesson before passing on. It's a great fight, one of Goku's few truly emotional moments in the entire series, and arguably the most memorable in the early going of the story. A solid B-tier entry.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong as well. I'm sure I saw a video where it was in Super, where Goku's at Bobbiddy's. I think he's waiting for Frieza, is he? And he's sparring with himself, like, you know, exercising and not doing his moves. And isn't it like copying part of the fight that he had with his granddad in this fight? Like, correct me if I'm wrong, because I thought, like, when I saw that, I was like, that's kind of a cool throwback as well. Like, I like how they don't just ignore the original Dragon Ball, because usually, like, most people get references to Z because that's what they grew up with. Most people watch Z first before Dragon Ball, and yeah, it's cool that they don't ignore the Dragon Ball itself. Correct me if I'm wrong, or if I'm right, let me know. 20 second
The 22nd Tenkaichi Budokai is sort of the forgotten middle child of the Dragon Ball Tournament trilogy. And while it doesn't achieve the highs of either the 21st or 23rd, it does offer the story its first substantial progression for the likes of Roshi. But before we get to the good stuff, we've got a boatload of preliminary goon fights to account for. While I understand the purpose of these battles, for the purpose of this video, I can't rank them any higher than bottom tier. They are important for setting the scene and introducing us to the likes of Ten Shinhan and Chaozu, but ultimately I can't bring myself to rank Krillin versus Nameless Wrestler anywhere near D tier. Then again,
So
I do
E's.
have Goku versus
This
Panput,
guy.
and that's easily E tier, so consider that the connective tissue. The overall standard of this tournament is far higher than the first outing. While Goku vs. Panput exists as a substanceless squash match, Jackie Chun vs. Man Wolf and Krillin vs. Chaozu inject some much needed creativity and comedy to bring up the average, making them easy D tier candidates. Yamcha vs. Ten Shinhan, while very short, is a solid C tier entry, picking up some points for acting as the bout that shows us just how ruthless Ten Shinhan has been instructed to be. Without this fight, all subsequent matchups with Ten Shinhan would lose value. It's on the cusp of being placed into B tier, but one thing holding it back is its length and lack of substance beyond Ten Shinhan breaking Yamcha's leg. This is Dragon Ball, and even B tier is competitive. Speaking of, Jackie Chun vs. Ten Shinhan is a good example of a great B tier entry. It's not super long, but it offers a lot more
decent.
to work with in terms of story.
Shows
We've
his
got Roshi
experts
trying to
at-
figure Ten Shinhan out, Ten Shinhan sizing up Roshi, and ultimately Roshi teaching Ten Shinhan his first major lesson by voluntarily jumping out of bounds. With the quote he exits with, "Yes, it's quite an era that's dawning, I do think, always holding a special place in my heart."
Wanting to
It
see
tells
what
us
the next
everything
generation
we need
can
to know
do, yeah.
about Ten Shinhan and the potential he has. Also fitting within this tier list is Goku vs. Krillin. There's not much to say about this fight that isn't already known. It's a really solid outing, boasting loads of creative choreography. The journey
So
of Goku
good.
and Krillin has been a storied venture, and for it to come to a head here,
Definitely an A,
felt
come on.
friendly and competitive in the best of ways. But we all knew how this one was going to end, didn't we? Solid B tier.
Ah.
But I'll tell you what's not B tier: Goku versus Ten Shinhan.
Oh, okay,
Hello,
fair.
A tier.
If we're grading
Now
them against
forced to
each
hand the
other,
reins
yeah,
of
yeah, yeah.
stopping Goku over to Ten Shinhan, Roshi looks on as the two most likely to succeed him as Earth's defenders duke it out for the right to call themselves the strongest under the heavens. While we have the story of Goku that we're all familiar with, Ten Shinhan and his growing distaste for the Crane School offers this battle a much needed air of emotional complexity and tension. Plus, the battle is epic. With it being easily Goku's biggest battle in terms of creativity and scope, Ten Shinhan facilitates a worthy opponent that brings Goku to the very brink. Seriously, the way the winner is called at the end of this fight is edge of your seat brilliant. A tier.
King Daddy Piccolo. Let's have it.
Let's get this out of the way first. The King Piccolo arc has a lot of fights that amount to a one-shot, aren't long enough to consider, or simply don't matter a whole lot. For that reason, I am awarding all of these fights the rank of bottom tier. They aren't bad, I just don't care about them, and let's be honest, neither do you. Coming in at D tier is Roshi versus King Piccolo. I thought about not including this fight at all because, again, it's literally just one attack, but I've included the likes of General Blue versus Tao on this list, and Roshi's outing here, while brief, does offer something significantly thematic to consider. This is the moment the current Guardian of the Earth failed. Following Goku running off and going rogue, Roshi feels like he needs to sacrifice his life, keep Ten Shinhan safe, and carry the weight of the world on his shoulders. As a piece of dramatic writing, it's brilliant, and that is why I'm ultimately placing it in D tier. It's super short and doesn't have a lot of complexity to it, but at the end of the day, Battle Shonen tell their story through action, and this did that exceptionally well. I might throw Ten Shinhan vs. Drum into the mix here too, as it's another tension-building moment for Goku to enjoy. Now, I sense that I might get hate comments for this next one, but if we take into consideration a fight's potential, the purpose it serves, and how well it was executed upon, I think Tambourine vs. Goku is better than Goku vs. King Piccolo round 1. Don't
Ooh.
shoot me. The Tambourine fight is filled with raw emotion that ultimately
Well, yeah,
acts
because
as
he's trying to get revenge, isn't he?
Goku's lesson for the arc to overcome. Think before you act. Plus, it's a thunderously well-executed moment with the likes of Krillin being taken out by this nameless mystery assassin. Also, once he does beat him, it's super satisfying. There's not a single misstep in my book with Tambourine, making this a solid C tier.
I agree with that, yeah.
And I cannot say the same thing for Goku versus King Piccolo round 1. While there's nothing at all wrong with the majority of the battle itself, it's how it concludes that ruins the interaction somewhat and relegates it to D tier. The contrivance of Goku's heart stopping at the exact right moment and then restarting once Piccolo is gone
Yeah, but it was Bardock's wish. It was Bardock's wish all along. It makes sense now.
is nothing short of insulting. As a piece of storytelling, the fight is the consequence of Goku's rash actions and holds a ton of significance within the arc because of that. And it is such a shame it doesn't execute on this idea better during its conclusion. Thankfully, their final encounter in the arc's climax is far better. Goku vs. King Piccolo Round 2 is not the best villain fight within Dragon Ball by any measure, but it is the first and as such does a surprising amount right. Thematically, this is Goku's coming out party as the Earth's defender once Roshi and Tenshinhan failed to deliver. In effect, the buck quite literally stops at Goku and he knows it. But does he look nervous? Nope. And that's what makes Goku such an empowering character to follow. He takes his licks and still manages to get up, try his best, and fully believe in himself. It's a powerful fight and one worthy of B tier in my book. Now, I thought that's where this arc's fights concluded, but I was forgetting one worthy of counting. While not super impressive or anything, Goku vs. Mr. Popo marks a turning point for Goku's journey once again and proves that he, again, has so much farther to go.
Learn, yeah, he's got loads to learn.
The fight is the perfect balance of humor meeting a modern sense of drama that's elevated by the ethereal, hallowed ground it takes place upon. For me, it's a surprising D tier entry.
There we go. I love the Goku dancing to the tunes. It's brilliant editing.
Alright, let's get the busy work out of the way, and my god, is there a surprising amount of fights that are going into bottom tier from my favorite arc of this first OG run. Goku versus King Choppa, Krillin versus Nameless Wrestler, Piccolo versus Kung Fu Fighter, Yamcha versus Nameless Wrestler number 2. It's crazy. Some of these fights last only a single panel of them on.
Wow, in the manga,
barely
okay,
exist. I thought with this being the last arc and all, I'd have at least one fight to include from these prelim matchups to add on the tier list, but even the more significant ones like Shen versus Yajirobe or Chaozu versus Tao Pai Pai, there's either not much to them at all, or they happen off screen, but I suppose Yajirobe's fight is okay enough to be included in E tier. You know what? Yeah, that's fine. E tier for Yajirobe. Which brings us to some of the best and most memorable fights in Dragon Ball. I'll kick this off with Goku versus Chi-Chi. Just like Roshi versus Piccolo or General Blue versus Tao, this is a fight that's defined by the story it tells and the impact it has rather than the quality of the fight, so to speak. Due to that, it's limited in how high I can rank it, but I think it's cute nevertheless. It's creative and consequential enough to warrant placement in D tier for me.
Love it.
Next up is a group of easy B tier candidates with Tenshinhan versus Tao, Krillin versus Piccolo, and Yamcha versus Shen. Each of these succeed and are worthy of this position for different reasons, but all execute upon their ideas brilliantly. Krillin through earning the respect of both Piccolo and us as readers through his incredible performance here in this draft up. Tenshinhan through bringing to a close his character arc with this thunderous display of virtue against a ghost from his evil past. And finally, Yamcha through perhaps his single best fight in the series to date, which sounds wrong to say because he loses this match quite convincingly, but if we think back, he's not really had much offered his way. Unless you think him surprising God in combat is somehow less impressive than whatever this was against the Invisible Man, I don't know what to tell you. Shen, while interesting on his own, was not the reason this fight worked as well as it did for me. It was all Yamcha. Seen as little more than a stepping stone for Shen towards Piccolo, to this day I still think of Yamcha's surprise Spirit Ball attack landing as one of the coolest underdog moments in the entire series and supremely underrated. Heck, Shen's bout against Piccolo Jr., while interesting and very good, still didn't feel as well executed upon as Yamcha's outing here to me, making this bout with Shen and Piccolo an easy C tier candidate. It's fun and dramatic with plenty of underlying lore begging for exploration that won't be known for a while more, but it's just too simple to rank any higher. Also, another potential hot take that I have is that I think Goku vs. Tenshinhan in the 23rd Tenkaichi Budokai is much better than the final of the 22nd Tenkaichi Budokai. Honestly, I'd almost put it in S tier, I think it's that good. But alas, it will have to remain on A tier. What can I say about it? It's an improvement on the prior matchup in terms of choreography, plus the fact that it's a rematch offers the clash a unique brand of interest.
Yeah,
how
there's
much
more
better
to
has
it.
Tenshinhan become? What about Goku? The fight also acts as the first instance of Goku using weighted clothing and is brimming with some genuinely creative solutions to combat problems that I found impressive reading through the first time. It's one thing to say Goku is a martial arts genius, but it's another to clearly show that, and this fight did that, in my opinion, brilliantly. However, while Goku vs Tenshinhan came up short in S tier, this next fight I think is virtually perfect. The finals of the 23rd Tenkaichi Budokai, Goku versus Piccolo
So good.
Jr. I have gushed about how much I adore this fight at length already, so I'll keep this straightforward. Number 1, the combat. It is revolutionary, creative, and thrilling from start to finish. There are no dull moments. Number 2, thematically, this is Goku's coming out party as the Earth's defender in a serious full-time capacity, but additionally, it reinforces that he never stops thinking about anything as a teachable moment or opportunity to learn. Even when downed and with no hope of survival, he not only manages to win, but does so while making sure to adhere to the rules of the tournament itself. It is mind-boggling. And number 3, characterization. This fight shows you who Goku is and what he is all about. Perhaps better than any other, while also offering Piccolo the chance to strut his stuff in one of the single best fights in the entire series. That moment where Goku charges at Piccolo to this day still gives me chills, and no other fight in this first half of the series even comes close to capturing its aura. This fight defines and lives
It's so good.
in S tier.
To be continued.
In a few days, I'm going to be releasing my tier lists for Dragon Ball Z and Super, so make sure to subscribe for those. But until next time, let me know if you agree with my list or if you change some things. I've been Totally Not Mark, and thank you all so much for watching.
Can't really argue with that. Can't really argue with that. Because, like, when you talk about quality of everything, all those non-fights, yeah, got to put them down there, because if you're trying to rank everything and then eventually come up with the top 20, you got to sort it all out. So I imagine he's gone through all 3, taking the S's and then ranking them. So that Goku Piccolo fight's definitely going into that. Well, we'll see how many are in Z and Super, I guess. Super, I don't think there'll be that many. Z, there'll be a few. If Android 17 Piccolo ain't in that video, the next one we're checking out, we got some talking, we got some splaining to do, you know what I'm saying? But, yeah, that was a fun little video to check out, and thank you all for watching.